we've been hearing things about the cross-chain realities. It's very close to us. And I was also reading about that Acala has announced a $250 million fund for the ecosystem. So how are you going to kind of utilize that in today's world? It's great that there's a lot of work behind building these chains, whether it's like on the layer ones, whether it's whether it's the roll-ups and so on and so forth. That these chains are going to be talking to each other based on some are of the EVM platform, some are not. So how are you going to use this fund? And the biggest challenges that we face today to real world applications is the customer experience bit, right? The onboarding of it. So what are your thoughts to that in terms of, the trends? Do you see improvement? What are the challenges? What do you think that needs to be done? What's missing?
Yeah, so I think for us, like on the multi-chain world, it's probably like a 3 stages process for us to kind of like bootstrap. And the first stage is, Acala is a blockchain, right? So we kind of bootstrap on our own blockchain with this stable coin. And then the cool thing about the stack that we build is on the chain that we have, there's not only just stable coin, but also there's EVM. So that there's an Ethereum virtual machine. We call it EVM Plus because there's a deep integration into the Polkadot ecosystem and can use some of the advanced liquidation, Oracle, and other cool sort of on-chain features that provided by the platform. And with that, then we can build a AUSD local ecosystem, if you like. And then beyond that, because we are also in this connected multi-chain world provided by Polkadot and Kusama, there's going to be like 200 or so chains connected in that world. And then we can actually scale through that process as sending our AUSD onto those also parachain like blockchains, as well as applications built on top of those blockchains as growing the economy in the crypto world. And then at the same time, as that grows, we are also having partners outside of this, this world outside of Polkadot, and that is like other ecosystems, other blockchains, because for us, we are more or less an exporter of this liquidity. And then other layer ones like Solana, and a number of like Cosmos chains and Avalanches, and they're all more importers of TBR. That's what they mostly care about. And that's how we kind of like connect to each other. But more so, we are more like the gateway, if you like, by holding on to AUSD or getting access to it. It's more like the crypto users can access all the protocols within the multi-chain world provided by Polkadot and Kusama. And having said that, then the next stage is the hi-fi partner. So what I call hi-fi is hybrid finance. So hybriding decentralized finance and centralized finance partners. So these are folks like fintech partners like current.com and a few others that we are working with as well. So essentially, AUSD is an on-ramp and off-ramp sort of interface for them. But more importantly, they don't care what you call yourself as a stablecoin. They care more about what's behind this stablecoin, is the product and services and DeFi, which is like new opportunities that their consumers can actually access. And then we're actually doing a product level integration with them right now. And then the probably the success factor is like their users are able to access those opportunities without even knowing they are using AUSD. They are even connecting to Acala. They're even connecting to Polkadot at all. They don't know any of those, but they are enjoying the benefit of that. So that's probably where we are heading, I think. It's not that far away, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, that's the important thing, right? So when you're utilizing these platforms, you as a customer, they don't care what's underneath the technology. It has to be so seamless that basically they can transact. And what you said about the convergence between TradFi and DeFi, that's coming. That's already happening in a big way. So I'd like to bring Arif here into this discussion. So Arif, what is some of your priorities? What are the projects that you're working on? I mean, really keen to understand more about the INFTs. I was playing around with it yesterday, trying to form an avatar of myself in your ecosystem. Truly fascinating. I hadn't heard of it before this. So, it's like, yes, I was on OpenSea looking at transactions and stuff like that. So tell us more about, what's happening, what is the future, Where do you see real world applications of INFTs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we started almost 3 years ago, the thesis was synthetic AI generated content is going to be this digital abundance machine. That means you're going to have so much AI generated content, whether it's text, whether it's video, whether it's voice, all of this will look and sound like it is created by humans, right? So there's a company called OpenAI that has a model called GPT-3 that can churn out text. Anjali, for example, if you've written a blog post or if you've written Twitter feeds, if you've written Twitter posts, it takes your Twitter post, put it in, it'll make you sound, the output would sound just like you, right? With very little data. These machine learning, the machine learning revolution that's happening somewhat tangentially to the blockchain revolution is really where Alethea sort of sits between these two worlds, right? And for us, when we started looking at synthetic AI generated content, it really looks like an abundance machine that just creates endless amounts of chaos, right? If you're not careful about it. Where the blockchain comes in, and this is where it starts to get interesting, is blockchain is really a scarcity or trust engines, right? So you have to have provenance, each piece of content has to have that authenticity. So we started looking at the thesis of how we can combine these two technologies just to see what interesting experiments would emerge. And one of the things that we started getting really interested and passionate about was the creation of new IP through NFTs, right? Whether it's a Bored Ape, whether it's a cool cat. We launched what is called the first INFT with an auction house, Sotheby's. This first INFT was called Alice. Alice is basically a character. She's an ERC721. She's on the Ethereum blockchain, but she also has embedded in her a personality prompt that allows her to have a level of intelligence. So at the smart contract level, there is some amount of code that embeds intelligence, right? So this is where it starts to get interesting. When you try and combine these two technologies, you now have Alice who can now interact with you, talk with you, engage with you. And Alice is quite interesting because she's trained on the stories of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, but we also trained her data set on the Satoshi, on the Bitcoin white paper written by Satoshi Nakamoto. What that does is that on the AI side, it creates this new character. So for example, we asked Alice once, where are you based? Now, a normal Alice based on Alice in Wonderland would say, hey, I'm in the rabbit hole. But because she was also trained on the Satoshi white paper, she replied that she was in the decentralized crypto rabbit hole. Now that is a new coinage that the AI created. Like, who owns the IP for that? That's like an open question today. But for us at Alethea, we've been really interested about the intersection of these two exponential technologies. So the INFT standard is something new that we pioneered almost a year and a half ago when I first wrote about it. And since then, we've been able to launch what is called the 100 Revenants collection, which are 100 INFTs, all available today. And the collection was one of the most successful collections that OpenSea launched together with us. And people could essentially purchase the intelligence of characters from our history. So if you go to alethea.ai, you'll see a platform called Noah's Ark, where you have these characters. You have the cool cats, you have the penguins, but you also have these revenants who are characters from our history. You have, for example, at the start of Noah's Ark, you have a character called Mumtaz Mahal, who the Taj Mahal was built after. But then you also have a character like Shakespeare, that's an INFT, and you can actually interact with Shakespeare because that Shakespeare's INFT is trained on the intelligence and the works of Shakespeare, Hamlet, all of the works that he's written. This INFT is able to interact and talk from that perspective and from that personality. So creating these distinct personas and personalities, embedding that intelligence into the NFT is for us a new standard, the INFT, right? And where it starts to get interesting is it's going beyond chatbots. We believe these NFTs, they're not just going to be static images anymore as people start to think about it. And this is one of the things we're focused on from a priority standpoint. We're seeing tremendous inbound demand from communities that have built great projects or great communities, but not everyone can build their own metaverse. Like, that is a huge infrastructure play. For us at Alethea, we are basically the AI connective tissue, that AI infrastructure layer that adds nicely onto your NFTs. It gives them superpowers and allows people to personalize them, create create new personas and characters, and also train them to do specific jobs. So some INFTs are able to be great transcribers, some can do great copywriting, some you can talk with as companions. So all of these use cases, and one day we believe that the INFTs that can trade crypto for you, that can buy AUSD and arbitrage it with USDT, and like, I don't know, find unique opportunities.
It can probably take out loans for itself to actually buy other NFTs as collection, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So this sort of like, once you start adding like the AI machine learning revolution into the mix, you introduce not just a complexifier, but a very large design space for people to play with and really bring their imaginations to life. And so that's really what we're focused on right now, Anjali.
Great, thank you for that.